In this video, I will be showing you all how to care for an ant colony that has grown beyond the founding stage. I will be covering topics such as how often to feed and water your colonies, how to prepare your ants for when you go on vacation, why it is important to choose the correct size nests and correct materials, as well as some mistakes I have made that you should avoid. I did not upload last week because I was on vacation, but rest assured that I will be uploading every Sunday starting now. Without any further ado, let's get into it, and I hope you all enjoy this week's video. Let me give you all an update on this colony. Since the last time they've been featured on the channel, they have undergone a nest change. The colony's worker force has grown since they were featured last year, but not as much as they could have if I did not make this big mistake. So let me explain. Over the time that I have kept ants, I have learned from experience that keeping ants from the genus Formicidae, which have a formic acid spray, in acrylic nests is not always a great idea. Reason being that these ants have a spray, which purpose is to break down tissues from their prey to make it easier to consume, and also is used as a self-defense mechanism. This spray in high quantity is toxic to the ants and can cause death to the colony if not maintained. This brings me to my first couple tips, which are all focused on keeping your ants' habitat healthy and reducing ammonia in the nest and outworld. Firstly, make sure that the nest and outworld your colony is housed in has good ventilation to reduce the amount of ammonia and smell of the spray that the ants produce. Using a barrier consisting of Fluon, or in this case Vaseline, is a good idea for many reasons, but being able to leave the top of your outworld off for a period of time helps a lot with ventilation. Using cotton to block the entrances to your nest and outworld is a good idea because it promotes airflow. Just make sure they do not chew through it, which can happen over time. Though personally, I have not had to deal with this issue just yet. My second tip has to do with specific nest materials and how different species can thrive better than others depending on this factor. Acrylic nests can work great for ants such as Tetramorium or Myrmica because they sting and do not have to worry about having a spray which is toxic to them. But as for others like Camponotus, Lasius, and Formica, I prefer grout, Ytong, or plaster nests. The difference between these materials is that acrylic nests are non-absorbent, while other materials I have listed are much more absorbent. Either way, it is important to take the proper precautions to reduce ammonia whether the species you have sprays acid or not. But having your ants that spray in a more ventilated and absorbent environment is what I personally have done and had success with. As a quick side note, some of you remember my Lasius neoniger colony I moved in a previous video. They had this exact issue with ammonia and the colony stopped producing eggs and being active. I let them go into the wild over a year ago because I did not understand the reasoning for their decline in health until afterwards. I am happy to inform those of you who are disappointed by this news that videos on Lasius will be returning very shortly to the channel, so stay tuned for that. But let's get back to the tips. Now let's talk about feeding your colonies. As most of you probably know by now, ant colonies need protein, water, and sugars to survive. For proteins, I prefer to use cut up mealworms from the pet store and sometimes mini cockroaches. For sugars, I prefer to keep it simple and use honey and sunburst ant nectar from Ant Keeping Depot. How often you feed your colonies can greatly play a part in how quickly your colonies grow. With young colonies in test tubes, feeding them protein less often is the best bet because they do not need much to start out with. Once you see the workers trying to exit the test tube by pulling out the cotton, that means they are looking for sugars and or proteins. When a young queen has her first workers, I like to wait a few days after they've hatched to give them any sort of sugar. Every week or so after that, I give them a small section of mealworm for protein, making sure to remove the carcass soon after they are finished with it. Generally, the larger the colony, the more protein and sugars they will need. Here you can see me feeding this colony a mealworm and performing my weekly maintenance on this colony by removing trash. The proteins that are provided to the colony are usually consumed by the queen to help her continue to produce eggs and by the colony's larvae, which need protein to help develop into pupae. While sugars are consumed by the queen, they are also consumed by the workers. This helps them perform their daily tasks such as foraging for food and tending to the brood and queen of the colony. This brings me to my next set of tips involving what to do when you go on vacation. Since there are no ant babysitters, while you are away you have to take extra precautions to make sure they have everything they need until you return. As I said, water is the most important thing that ants need to survive, so providing extra test tubes and water reservoirs, such as Biformica feeders from Ant Keeping Depot, will help make sure they have the resources needed to survive. When it comes to sugars, the same practices of providing an extra sugar source for the colony's outworld is recommended. You can also provide your ants with protein jelly for them to feed on while you are gone, but I prefer to load them with protein right before I leave. Giving your ants protein is essential for the brood to grow, but they can go quite a while without protein. This just means that brood production will be halted until they are provided with protein. These feeders from Biformica work very well for this, as I have mentioned, and they are easy to refill. Though I am not sponsored, I will leave a link to the Ant Keeping Depot website where you can find all of these items I have mentioned. I recommend having a heating cable or mat placed near your ant's nest to heat up a corner of the nest so there is a temperature gradient for the ants to choose from. If the ants move their brood outside of the nest and into the outworld, do not worry. This could be because it is too hot in the nest for the ants or because the nest was watered too much. When moving your ant colony into a new nest, you can use heat, light, or keeping their nest too dry or wet to entice them into moving out of their current setup. This colony of Camponotus modoc that I have featured on the channel many times has been doing very well this year so far by producing a lot of eggs and being very active. The nest that I have them in is from Tar Heel ants, and out of all product lines, I have noticed my Camponotus colony have thrived best in them. I think that this is because this type of nest most accurately simulates the conditions that they would nest in the wild. Pretty soon, this colony will need a nest change, and if you have any suggestions in the comment section for what I should house them in, please let me know. Also, let me know if there are any specific colonies you want me to feature on the channel, give updates on, care videos on, or just any video ideas you want to see. With that said, I hope that you all enjoyed this week's video. I created this video and chose these topics for the video based off of information that I would have wanted to know when I first started ant keeping. Also, I created this video to share with you some mistakes I have made over the years, and to help you all avoid these mistakes, so I hope you all find this as useful as I would have when starting out. I also want to thank you all for the positive feedback I have been getting on my videos since I returned to posting. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you in my next video on Sunday. Peace.